My name is Mike Sanders, and at 36 years old, I have been married to Lisa, my high school sweetheart, for 16 years. Our daughter, Emma, is 14 now, a teenager growing up faster than I can keep track of. I am a solid guy, 6 feet tall and about 200 pounds, most of it muscle. That comes with the territory when you have been an electrician for nearly 20 years. I was never much for classroom learning, but I have always excelled at practical tasks. Right after high school, I started training as an electrician. 4 years later, I passed the test to become a journeyman. By the time I was 24, I had earned my master electrician's license. It is not that I am not intelligent. I just prefer hands-on work over sitting with textbooks. For a long time, I dreamed of starting my own business. But Lisa was always cautious and preferred the stability of my steady job at Summit Electrical Contractors. With Emma being so young and Lisa staying home, I agreed to stick with it for the sake of security. My job paid well, allowing us to live comfortably. The house was paid off, the cars were ours outright, and we even took vacations without stressing over money. I thought we were happy. My best friend since elementary school, Jason, took a different path. He went to Stanford, earned an MBA, and became a successful businessman. Jason makes more money than me by a long shot, but he is still single and often comes over for dinner, joking about how jealous he is of my family. Mike, he says, money can buy you a lot, but not love. I always agreed. I loved Lisa, and Emma was my world. Emma and I were close. I even taught her some basic electrical work, though I hoped she would pursue something greater in the future. I thought life was as perfect as it could get, until August turned everything upside down. That day, I got home from a long, hot job and immediately noticed Jason's car parked in the driveway. It was not unusual since he often dropped by for dinner. What was odd, though, was the tension in the air when I walked through the door. Normally, Emma would rush to greet me, but not this time. Curious, I asked Lisa where Emma was, and she said Emma was at her friend Charlotte's house. There was something off about both Lisa's and Jason's expressions. When Lisa said, "We need to talk," my heart sank. I was dripping with sweat from the day's work and told her I needed to shower first. As the water poured over me, my mind raced. Was Lisa pregnant? We had not talked about more kids, but it was possible. That would explain her concern. I even wondered if someone was ill. Maybe Lisa's parents or her sister. I had no family left. My dad died in a car crash when I was 11, and my mom passed away a decade later. But I ruled out illness. I would have known if it were that serious. With nothing left to go on, I braced myself and went downstairs. I did not immediately notice that Lisa and Jason were sitting unusually close on the couch while I took the love seat across from them. Lisa started with the kind of preamble that makes your stomach churn. How much she appreciated me and everything I had done. Then she dropped the bomb. She and Jason were in love, and she wanted a divorce. It felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my chest. My mind went blank. Lisa kept talking, saying she hoped we could handle things smoothly for Emma's sake, to keep her life as stable as possible. When I finally found my voice, the first question I asked was if she had slept with him. Her sly smile was like a dagger. Of course I have, Mike. I could barely comprehend what she was saying. 20 years together, over half our lives, and she had thrown it all away. I thought we were happy. I thought we had something worth fighting for. Now, all I could think about was how long this had been going on and where it had all gone wrong. Jason tried to speak, but I cut him off, yelling, "Do not say a damn word, Jason, or I swear I will kill you. Nod if you understand me." He nodded, his face pale. Jason is not a fighter, and he knew I could break him in half if I wanted to. Lisa jumped in, trying to calm me down. "Mike, let us try to keep things civil." "Civil?" I shot back. "You have the nerve to talk to me about being civil after what you have done?"
No, Lisa.
"I am taking custody of Emma, not you." Lisa held her ground. "I get that you are upset, but Emma is staying with me. I am home more and you work long hours. We can figure out a fair schedule so you still see her a lot." That was the last straw. "You do not understand a damn thing. Emma is my daughter, and I will not be some part-time dad just because the woman I married decided to trade me in for a guy with a bigger paycheck. And Jason, I turned to him. I see now why no other woman stuck around. You were too busy planning this. Jason stayed silent, looking like he wanted to disappear. Lisa, on the other hand, got defensive. This is not about money, Mike, she said. The truth is, we never should have gotten married. I thought I loved you, but we were just kids. I married you because it was expected. But as I got older, I realized there was more out there for me. Jason and I clicked. We never meant for this to happen, but it did. I noticed then that they were holding hands. My stomach turned. I noticed, Lisa, I said. I just had faith in you and in Jason. Faith I clearly should not have had. Lisa's tone hardened. I am sorry you feel this way, Mike, but this is happening. It could have gone smoother if you had stayed calm. Get out, I growled. Both of you, get out of my house. Now. I am not leaving the house I worked my tail off to pay for just because you decided I am not good enough anymore. I snapped at Lisa. I am sure Jason can set you up in his fancy bachelor pad. Lisa crossed her arms, her expression hardening. Fine. I have already moved most of my stuff to his place anyway. She shot back, her words like salt in an open wound. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Without another word, she turned to head upstairs, calling over her shoulder. I'll just grab the last few things, and then we will go. For what it is worth, Mike, I am sorry. Her words barely registered. I stayed planted on the couch, staring blankly at the wall as the reality of the situation sunk in. Nothing she said meant anything anymore. After about 30 minutes, Jason came down first, lugging a suitcase, his gaze carefully avoiding mine. Lisa followed a few moments later, pausing briefly at the door as if she had something else to say. But in the end, she left silently. When Emma got home later that evening, I sat her down to explain everything. I avoided saying anything harsh about her mom or Jason. I figured she would piece things together herself soon enough. Deep down, I believed in the bond Emma and I shared. She loved me, and at 14, she had a significant say in custody decisions. I was confident she would choose to stay with me. The next morning, I hired a lawyer. I was determined to fight hard, though he warned me the odds were not in my favor. The law leaned toward Lisa, especially since she stayed home and I worked long hours. Alimony seemed inevitable unless Lisa married Jason quickly, and child support would hinge on where Emma decided to live. But I held on to hope. At the hearing 3 weeks later, Lisa surprised me by waiving alimony, likely because Jason made more money than both of us combined. They were already planning their wedding. I avoided looking at her during the proceedings, focusing instead on the judge's words. Emma spent an hour speaking with the judge in private. When she came out, her face was streaked with tears. My heart ached, assuming she felt guilty about choosing me. But when the judge delivered the verdict, my world came crashing down. Custody was awarded to Lisa. The reasoning was simple. It was better for Emma to stay in the same school and environment. I was stunned. Emma had chosen Lisa over me. I had completely misjudged the situation, believing my family truly cared about me. The judge's words about fairness, child support, and visitation became a blur. All I could focus on was the betrayal. I left the courtroom in a daze. Emma hugged me, whispering, "Daddy," but I could not respond. The betrayal from Lisa, Jason, and now Emma felt total. I was utterly alone. Later, Lisa approached me, her face full of pity. "Mike, you will still see Emma. This is what is best for her." Jason wisely stayed at a distance, but I had nothing left to give. "I guess you won, Lisa. I will be out of here by the end of the week," I muttered. Thinking I meant the house, she replied, "There is no rush, Mike. Take your time." Her fake kindness only fueled my anger. "Do not give me your crap, Lisa. If I meant anything to you, none of this would have happened. Like I said, I will be gone by the end of the week. Take your daughter and leave me alone." "She is our daughter, Mike," Lisa said softly. "No," I growled. "She made her choice. She chose you. Goodbye, Lisa." I walked out without looking back.
From the wife's perspective, after the hearing, Jason and I moved quickly to sell his condo. We needed to finalize everything before settling into the house Mike and I had shared. The goal was to keep Emma's life stable since Jason's condo was in a different school district. To be honest, none of this had been planned. Jason and I fell in love despite our best efforts not to. Hurting Mike was never the intention, but our feelings were too strong. The first time Jason and I were intimate happened when Mike was working an overnight job. That night confirmed what I already suspected. We were meant to be together. Over the following weeks, Jason and I met a couple more times before breaking the news to Mike. I had hoped Mike would recover quickly, but the way things unfolded caught us off guard. Mike refused to communicate directly, going through his lawyer for everything. He was supposed to pick Emma up at 4 o'clock on Friday, but by 4:30, there was no sign of him. His phone was disconnected, and I could not reach his lawyer. Worried, I decided to take Emma back to the house. When we arrived, it looked abandoned. Most of Mike's belongings were gone, but Emma's room was untouched. On the kitchen counter, I found a cashier's check covering child support until Emma's high school graduation. A knock at the door startled me. For a brief moment, I hoped it was Mike, but it was our neighbor, Mrs. Perrin. She told me Mike had not been around for days. He had emptied the house onto the lawn, and a Salvation Army truck had come to pick everything up. He had vanished. When I asked if he left any forwarding information, Mrs. Perrin hesitated before saying, "He told me to tell you. I will see you in hell." Tears streamed down my face as the reality sank in. Mike was gone. He had prepaid his obligations, cut all ties, and disappeared without a word. When he referred to Emma as your daughter in the courtroom, I had assumed it was said in anger, not as a final severing of ties. Emma saw my tears when she came back inside, and I had no choice but to tell her the truth. She reacted with anger, blaming me for driving him away with my infidelity. She collapsed into tears, and I pulled her into my arms, apologizing repeatedly. But I knew there was no easy way to make things right. We cried together on the floor for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Eventually, we drove back to Jason's condo in silence. Emma shut herself in her room, sobbing again. Jason asked what had happened, and I explained everything. Mike told Mrs. Perrin he would see us in hell. He gave away everything and left. I confessed, my voice shaking. "I am scared, Jason. What if he does something drastic?" Jason looked grim. I never thought he would react like this. Mike was always the guy who handled crises when the rest of us panicked. If anyone was dependable, it was him. But even Jason seemed unsure now.
From the husband's perspective, I knew it would hurt him. I knew Mike would be devastated when he found out about Lisa and me, but I told myself he would understand eventually. We had all been close for so long, and I thought it would make sense to him in time. He would heal and we would all move forward. But now, standing in the empty house he left behind, I realized just how wrong I had been. After everything went down, I knew I had to start over. Being an electrician meant I could find work anywhere, even while keeping a low profile. I canceled all my credit cards, paid cash for everything, and moved 3 states away before anyone realized the house was empty. I found a local contractor willing to pay me under the table. The rate was less than I deserved, but I did not care. I did not need much money, just enough to get by and keep myself busy. The contractor was curious about my situation. "You on the run or something?" he asked one day. "No," I replied with a small smile. "Just trying to stay out of sight." He nodded knowingly, mentioning his own ex-wife, and we left it at that. For a while, I slept in my car, using a nearby truck stop to shower and shave. I could afford a room, but I avoided anything that required my name. While I doubted Lisa or anyone else was actively looking for me, I was not willing to take any chances. As the weather turned colder, I came across a room for rent. The owner, an elderly woman named Miss Ruth, was willing to do things informally. She did not need the money, but she wanted company and someone to help her fix up her mobile home. It was a fair trade. I stayed a few nights a week and worked on repairs for her.
From the wife's perspective, the divorce was finalized in mid-January. About a week later, our daughter Emma turned 15. She had been holding on to hope that her father might reach out to her on her birthday. But the day came and went with no word from Mike. That night, I heard her crying into her pillow, and it broke my heart. I walked into the bedroom that Tom and I now shared, the same bedroom I had once shared with Mike. Tom was sitting up in bed, reading as he always did. I leaned against the doorframe, overwhelmed by the sound of Emma's sobs. "I cannot believe he has completely cut her off," I said. "She is just a child. How could he give up on her like this?" Tom set his book down and looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and concern. "I am surprised too," he admitted. "I think we underestimated just how much this hurt him. But Lisa, we cannot let this consume us. We need to focus on supporting Emma. Maybe counseling would help." He was right. With Mike gone, it was up to us to help Emma process her feelings and move forward.
From the husband's perspective, by the time I turned 40, I had been living with Miss Ruth for almost 3 years. My routine was simple: go to work, come home, and occasionally share a quiet evening with her. I had no interest in meeting new people, let alone women. My focus was on surviving, not living. It was January when I quietly marked my birthday. I tried not to think about the past, but it had a way of creeping in. Lisa was about to turn 42, and her 3-year anniversary with Jason was approaching. I had seen their wedding announcement online once and gotten drunk that day. I also knew Emma was about to turn 18 and would be graduating from high school in June. Brief thoughts about her future, college, relationships, flashed through my mind, but I quickly pushed them away. I wanted nothing more than a drink to dull the memories.
From the daughter's perspective. When I turned 18, Mom and Tom surprised me with a car. It was not anything fancy, but it was new, and I loved it. I took my friends to the mall that day, trying to enjoy the moment. By then, I had come to terms with the fact that Dad would never reach out, not on my birthday, not ever. But a small part of me still hoped. When the day passed without anything from him, I could not help but feel disappointed. Graduation day was bittersweet. As I sat among my classmates, I thought about how things could have been different. My parents should have been sitting together, watching me walk across the stage like we had talked about when I was little. Instead, Mom sat with Tom, smiling and waving when I looked their way. They seemed happy together, probably happier than she had ever been with Dad. But still, it felt wrong. None of this should have happened. As my eyes scanned the crowd, I saw someone who stood out. Near the back, a man with long hair and glasses caught my attention. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, I thought it was Dad. I stood up, trying to get a better look, but he was gone. Maybe it was just my imagination.
From the husband's perspective, the next 4 years passed in a blur. Miss Ruth eventually fell ill and moved to a care facility. Her mobile home was sold, and I rented a room at a boarding house. The landlord was happy to keep things off the books, thanks to Miss Ruth's glowing reference. At 44, I was still in good shape, working for the same contractor and keeping a low profile. It was not much of a life, but it was mine. That all changed one afternoon when I walked into a diner for lunch. I had not been there in a while, but Gail, a friendly waitress in her 60s, waved me over to a booth instead of the counter. I soon found out why. My server was someone new. A tall, slim blonde with a name tag that read Rebecca. Throughout the meal, Rebecca and I exchanged glances. There was something about her that drew me in. When her shift ended, she wished me a good day in a way that felt more personal than the usual customer service routine. Taking it as a sign, I asked her out. To my surprise, she smiled and agreed. As we sat together that evening, memories of my past started bubbling up, uninvited. Painful thoughts of everything I had lost hit me like a wave, and I found myself fighting back tears. Sheila must have noticed, but she wisely chose not to bring it up. She had a way of reading the room, something I appreciated more than I could say. Later that night, Megan asked me to read her a bedtime story. The simple request caught me off guard, but it also warmed my heart. Sitting with her, reading, I felt honored. Afterward, Sheila and I settled on the couch. She praised how I had handled Megan's curious questions earlier in the evening. "You're great with her," she said softly, her hand resting on mine. She invited me to stay the night, with the understanding that I would leave before Megan woke up. I agreed, and we spent a deeply intimate night together. For all my fears, being with Sheila felt like a second chance. A chance at the kind of love I had thought was lost forever. Later, she checked on Megan, who was fast asleep with her new green teddy bear tucked under her arm. As I quietly dressed to leave, I could not help but feel grateful for how my life was slowly coming back together.
From Sheila's perspective, I was stretched out in Mike's bed, enjoying a rare quiet morning. Megan was at a sleepover, and I had the day off work. Mike had gone to a job after we had spent most of the night, and again that morning making love. We had been together for 8 months now, and I was completely in love with him. I was pretty sure he felt the same, and I was expecting him to propose any day now. After rolling out of bed and taking a shower, I found myself looking around his room. We usually spent our nights at my place where Megan was more comfortable, so I was not here often. It was a small, simple space. A desk, a microwave, a hot plate, and a queen-size bed. But something in the closet caught my eye. A file box tucked into the corner. Curiosity got the better of me. I debated whether or not to look inside. On one hand, it felt like a breach of privacy, but on the other, I wanted to know more about the man I was planning to marry. Finally, I decided to take a quick peek. What I found left me stunned. Among the papers were his marriage certificate and divorce decree, which I had expected. But then I saw something I had not anticipated. A record of a daughter named Emma, now around 22 years old. That would have made her just 14 when he divorced his ex-wife. Mike had told me he did not have any kids. This revelation left me reeling. There was even a phone number for his ex-wife, Lisa. I carefully put everything back, unsure of what to do next. Maybe Gail, the older waitress at the diner who had known Mike for years, could give me some insight. The following morning, I went to work early and asked Gail what she knew about Mike's past. She frowned and warned me to leave it alone, saying I should focus on the good man he was now. But I could not shake the feeling that I needed answers. If he could leave behind a daughter, what was stopping him from walking out on Megan? I loved Mike deeply, but Megan's well-being came first. I had to understand why he had made the choices he did, even if it risked everything we had built.
From the ex-wife's perspective, when the phone rang and the screen showed a private number, I almost ignored it. Over the years, I had grown used to spam calls. But something made me pick up. A nervous voice on the other end asked for Lisa Carter, my old married name. "I am Lisa," I said cautiously. The caller introduced herself as Sheila and told me she was dating my ex-husband, Mike. I froze, unable to process what I had just heard. For years, I had wondered if anyone connected to him would ever reach out, but I had never thought about how I would handle it if they did. After a moment to collect myself, I continued the conversation. Sheila explained that Mike had never opened up to her about his past, and that she had recently discovered he had a daughter. It stung to hear that he had moved on so completely, building a new life with someone else, yet still refused to acknowledge what we had shared. "Sheila, I am glad to hear he is doing well," I said, my voice tight. "He is a good man. He did not deserve what I did to him." "If you do not mind me asking, Lisa," Sheila said cautiously, "what exactly happened between you two?" I sighed. "We were together for over 20 years, married for 16, and I divorced him to be with his best friend, someone he had known since childhood." Sheila was silent for a moment, and then she surprised me. "My husband did the same thing to me," she said. "Left me for my best friend. It is a small world, I guess." I managed a hollow laugh. "It is not just the divorce, though. Mike completely disappeared. People get divorced all the time, but they do not usually abandon their kids." "You are right," Sheila admitted. "That part has been bothering me. Why do you think he left like that?" Taking a deep breath, I explained the events leading up to Mike's departure. I do not think he saw it as abandoning Emma. In his eyes, she chose me and my new husband over him. Right after the divorce hearing, he referred to her as your daughter. I should have realized then what he meant when he said he would be gone in a week. I thought he was just leaving the house, not cutting ties completely. Sheila was quiet for a moment. I see now why he kept this to himself, she said thoughtfully. Lisa, I do not owe you anything, but Emma is getting married soon. She has been upset about Mike's absence, especially since she always dreamed of him walking her down the aisle. If you have any influence, please convince him to reach out. I will try, Sheila promised, though I could hear the hesitation in her voice.
From Sheila's perspective, the conversation with Lisa left me feeling conflicted. I loved Mike, but I could not ignore what I had learned. If he could abandon his daughter, what was stopping him from doing the same to Megan? I needed to know if his actions were a one-time response to a devastating betrayal or part of a deeper pattern. The next day, I called Lisa again and asked for Emma's number. Lisa agreed, understanding the delicacy of the situation, and promised to keep Mike's location a secret. After preparing myself for the conversation, I nervously dialed Emma's number. "Good afternoon, this is Emma Carter," she answered. "Hi, Emma. My name is Sheila. I am dating your father." There was a pause before she replied. "My mom said you might call. What do you want to know?" "I think we need to talk in person," I said gently. "If you are willing, I can fly you out here, and we can go together to see your dad. I will cover everything." Emma hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You do not even know me." "I was in your shoes once, Emma," I replied. "Some things are too important to ignore. I need to know the man I am planning to marry, and I want him to make things right with you." After dropping Megan off at school, I drove straight to the airport, a mixture of nerves and determination fueling me. I had a sign with Emma's name on it, and despite the crowded baggage claim area, I spotted her immediately. She smiled warmly as she approached, and we exchanged polite pleasantries. She seemed eager, even excited, to see her father after all these years. The drive back to Marble Falls was mostly quiet. Before reaching town, I pulled over and called Rosie, Mike's dispatcher, to find out where he was working that day. She mentioned he was at the department store on 4th and Main, then joked about a story involving Mike in the back of his truck. Her teasing made me blush, and Emma picked up on it, laughing lightly. It felt like a brief moment of levity before the storm I knew was coming. As we neared the department store, I spotted Mike's truck in the lot. I instructed Emma to hang back while I positioned myself near the driver's side door. About 20 minutes later, his familiar voice reached my ears. The moment Emma had been waiting for was finally here.
From Mike's perspective, I had just finished fixing the electrical issue in the restroom and was heading out to my truck to grab tools for my next job. In my pocket was the engagement ring I had been carrying around for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to propose to Sheila. Maybe today would be the day, I thought. Then I saw Sheila's car parked behind mine. At first, my heart raced with excitement, but then I saw her standing there, not alone. Emma. Seeing my daughter after so many years hit me like a gut punch. A flood of emotions, pain, fear, anger, rushed through me, but I forced myself to keep my expression neutral. Sheila must have orchestrated this, and I felt betrayed. "Emma?" I greeted her flatly, then turned to Sheila. My voice was sharp. "You went behind my back." I barely acknowledged Emma before I threw my tools into the truck and prepared to drive away. That was when Emma spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "Daddy, I'm getting married. Is that right?" I replied coldly. "Congratulations." I paused, unable to keep the anger from rising. Then the words slipped out before I could stop them. "Try not to become a cheating homewrecker like your mother." I climbed into the truck and slammed the door. It did not end there. Emma banged on the window with both fists. "I know you still care about me," she yelled. "I saw you at my graduation." I rolled down the window just enough to speak. "I do not know what you think you saw, Emma, but it was not me." Tears streamed down her face as I fired up the engine and drove away. My chest felt tight. Damn it, Sheila. Why would she do this? I had worked so hard to leave that life behind, and now it was all crashing back. I pulled over after 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to catch my breath. I had been happy. For the first time in years, I had found peace. Sheila and Megan had given me a fresh start, and now it was ruined. Clearly, happiness was not meant for me. I decided then and there that I would finish my calls for the day, then let my boss know I was leaving town. Again.
From Sheila's perspective, I held Emma as she cried into my shoulder, her sobs shaking us both. I was stunned by how cold Mike had been. This was his daughter, for God's sake. Yes, she had made a choice when she was 14, but she was just a kid. This was not about Emma, it was about the pain Mike still carried. I helped Emma into the car and drove back to my apartment. "You will stay with me for now," I told her softly. "This was just the first attempt. I will talk to him again after he finishes work." I tried to sound confident, but I was not sure I could fix this.
From Mike's perspective, when I returned to the boarding house that evening, I half expected to find Sheila and Emma waiting for me, but the place was quiet. In a way, it was a relief. It made my decision to leave easier. I loved Sheila and Megan deeply, but after what she had done, bringing Emma back into my life without telling me, I felt betrayed. I could not trust her anymore. I began packing my things, determined to be gone by morning. When a knock came at the door, I ignored it, but then Sheila walked in. She stood against the wall, watching silently as I stuffed clothes into a duffel bag. "Leaving again?" she asked, her voice sharp. I lashed out. "You have no idea what you have done. You had no right to dig up my past." "She is your daughter, Mike," she shot back. "She deserves a chance to talk to you." Her words only made me angrier. "You think this is the same as your ex-husband leaving you? It is not. You do not know what it is like to have the people you love most destroy you. I trusted you, Sheila. You were the only person I thought I could count on. And now you have betrayed me too." I paced the room, my anger boiling over as memories of my past surfaced. My mother's affair, my father's suicide, the years of abuse from my stepfather. The scars on my back itched, a cruel reminder of the life I had fought so hard to leave behind. Sheila tried to reason with me. "I was scared, Mike. I needed to know why you left Emma behind. I needed to know if you would do the same to Megan." Her words cut me deeper than I wanted to admit. She was right. My actions had scared her. But instead of calming down, I pushed her away further. "If you cannot trust me, then I will save you the trouble of worrying. I will be gone by morning." I turned my back on her, expecting her to walk out, but she stayed.
From Sheila's perspective, I had reached my breaking point. I loved Mike, but I could not keep standing by while he let his bitterness and anger destroy everything we had built. "You are so consumed by your pain that you cannot see what is right in front of you," I said, my voice trembling with frustration. "Your daughter dropped everything to come see you because she loves you. She wants you in her life. Even Lisa, who you think hates you, just wants to help her daughter find closure. But you? You are too busy being a victim." I threw his house key at him, hitting him square in the chest. "You can leave, Mike. Go back to just existing like you did before you met me and Megan. But if you do, you will lose the best chance you ever had to move on." Without waiting for his response, I stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook.
From Mike's perspective, as the door slammed, the reality of what I had done hit me. I had been wrong to shut out Emma, wrong to push Sheila away. I could not lose her, and I could not lose Megan. And maybe, just maybe, I could not lose Emma either. I stopped packing and rushed to Sheila's apartment. Her car was in the lot, and I knelt at her door, ready to apologize. When she opened it, I poured out my heart, admitting my mistakes and begging for forgiveness. Sheila forgave me, but on one condition. I had to make things right with Emma. I agreed without hesitation. The love I once had for Lisa was long gone. For Emma's sake, I tried to stay civil, but any feelings of affection had been replaced with something far colder. Tom, standing nearby, looked like he wanted to speak, but I held up my hand to stop him. "Tom, do you remember the last thing I said to you?" I asked. "Nod if you do." He nodded, his expression tense. My feelings have not changed, I said firmly. Sheila must have sensed the tension because she stepped in, pulling Tom away before he could say anything else. That left me and Lisa alone for the first time in years. Once Sheila and Tom were out of earshot, Lisa broke the silence. I'm surprised, Mike, she said cautiously. After all this time, you still carry so much animosity. I thought we might have moved past this by now, maybe even be friends. We've both found happiness, after all. You've got Sheila and Megan, and you've built a life. I've heard you're a wonderful father to Megan. Her words were diplomatic, even complimentary, but I was not buying it. Lisa, I said, my voice calm but cold. If you think we're going to reconcile, you're wrong. The love I had for you turned to hatred a long time ago. For you and Tom. Her face fell slightly, but she persisted. Why can't you let it go, Mike? I sighed, knowing she would not understand unless I spelled it out. You want to know why I can't let it go? Fine. Let's start with the fact that my mother cheated on my father repeatedly before leaving him for another man. My father, devastated, took his own life. I was 11 years old. That's the kind of betrayal I grew up with. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Lisa stayed quiet, so I continued. The real pain came from the betrayal of the three people I loved the most. You, Tom, and Emma. I built my life around the three of you, believing we would grow old together. And then, in one moment, you two ripped it all apart. Lisa looked at me with something that might have been regret. I did love you, Mike, she admitted, but not in the same way you loved me. I can't change that. Her words felt hollow. This wasn't just about love, I said. It was about trust. You and Tom destroyed any sense of stability I had left. And you didn't just take yourself. You took Emma with you. Lisa flinched at that. Emma made that choice on her own.
Erklärte her.
Look me in the eye and tell me you didn't influence her. Tell me you didn't say things like, it'll be strange with Tom here instead of Daddy, but at least I'll still be here after school. Tell me that didn't happen. Lisa didn't deny it. She looked away, and I knew I was right. You wanted it all, didn't you? I said. Your selfishness destroyed someone who loved and supported you for 16 years. Did you ever think about how that would affect me? Did you ever suggest to Emma that maybe she should live with me, so I wouldn't be left completely alone? You're right, Mike, Lisa admitted quietly. I didn't think of it like that, but you disappeared without a word. What did you expect me to do? I was left alone, Lisa, I said, my voice rising. My whole family was gone. My wife and daughter were living with the man who replaced me. Did you really think I could stay and watch my life move on without me? I had two choices. Cut all ties or end my life. And honestly, I came close to the second option. Lisa's face turned pale. God, Mike, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, I snapped. You were too busy building your new life to care. When I told Mrs. Perrin I'd see you in hell, I meant it. I even had the gun ready. The only reason I didn't go through with it was because I hated you and Tom too much to give you that satisfaction. Lisa was stunned into silence. I let my anger cloud my judgment with Emma, I admitted. When she chose to live with you, I assumed she had picked your side. I thought she wanted Tom as her father, and I overreacted. That cost me 8 years I'll never get back. Sheila helped pull me out of that spiral, or God knows how much more I would have lost. Now I know what it's like to have someone who actually cares about me. Do you understand why I still hate you? Lisa nodded slowly. I get it, Mike. I hope time would heal things, but it hasn't. I'm sorry for how we handled it. Can we at least be civil? Yes, I said after a moment. We share a daughter. I'll treat you like any other stranger. But make sure Tom never speaks to me again. If he does, you'll be a widow. Over the next 2 years, life began to stabilize. I gradually bought out my boss as he retired, turning the company into the largest electrical contractor in Marble Falls and one of the biggest in Central Texas. While I still went on calls occasionally, most of my time was spent running the business alongside Sheila. She handled appointments and scheduling while I managed the staff and projects. We did the paperwork together in the evenings. Megan adored her new baby sister, Katie, who was born a year after Sheila and I got married. Benjamin, Emma's husband, got a promotion to Dallas, about 4 hours away, but we still saw them monthly. They're expecting my first grandchild next year, and I couldn't be more excited. As for Tom and Lisa, nothing terrible happened to them, aside from some significant weight gain. I do not care to hear much about them, but Emma keeps Sheila updated, and Sheila occasionally shares bits with me. Unlike me, Sheila does not hold grudges. She even sends them a thank you card on our anniversary, joking that their actions brought us together. I might never forgive Lisa and Tom, but I am finally at peace. I have a wife who loves me, children who bring me joy, and a future that no longer feels like a shadow of the past.